Monotony. It comes in all shapes and sizes. Dull, tedious, just plain boring. But what is this? A contender, perhaps? Something unboring by the looks of it. Jabs right at dull, an uppercut to tedium, something that keeps you on your toes, keeps your head on a swivel. A knockout punch to your old, boring workouts. Welcome to Fight Camp.
Every day, women fight uphill battles.
Not because they lack talent. Not because they aren't trying hard enough.
The field itself is the challenge.
Over 676 million women live within 30 miles of war.
Women deliver most of the world's health care, but hold only 25% of leadership.
Working women spend nearly twice as much time on childcare and housework as men.
74% of women athletes work extra jobs to make ends meet.
When we level the playing field, women don't just succeed, they challenge everything.
And as they rise, they bring their communities with them.
Equality isn't a dream, it's a choice.
This International Women's Day, choose to level the playing field.
Sign the pledge at care.org/pledge.
never back down. I'm that chick with a clean ass whip. I don't need that shit, cause I got my own now. I ain't home, I get tired of fussing, fighting, guess I gotta crack down. Don't mess with me, cause on everything, I'ma have to bring the whole city out. And I probably end up laughing, cause I never back down. I'm that chick with a clean ass whip. I don't need that shit, cause I got my own now. I ain't home, I get tired of fussing, fighting, guess I gotta crack down. Don't mess with me, cause on everything, I'ma have to bring the whole city out.
I know what you're thinking. Is this the booth, drafting the circuits, three-way theater, or the Kevin Jackson show? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I kinda lost track myself here on Hoobazoo.com. So, do you feel lucky, punk?
The movie, music, news, television promos, trailers and videos used in this production are protected by the Fair Use Act. Section 107 of the Copyright Act. 1. The purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of commercial nature or is for nonprofit educational purposes. 2. The nature of the copyrighted work. 3. The amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. 4. The effect of the use upon the potential market for, or value of, the copyrighted work.
I am not here to waste your time. I'm here to help you level up as athletes, as people, and as teammates. Here, let this sink in. Your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings drive your actions. A positive mindset is a power. It's the ability to face seconds to a minute, and I can totally change the way I was gearing up. Because the grind doesn't care how you feel, it cares whether you show up or not. A daily practice. If you start to do this on a daily basis, you will feel better. There will be more positivity in your life. There will be more confidence in your life. There will be more peace in your life. Okay, so here's how this works. A daily practice. You get a notebook or a journal. Write down 3 things you're grateful for. Feel the gratitude as you write down the things you're thankful for. And then I'm going to write down 3 goals. Now here's the trick. When you write down these goals, you write them down as if they've already happened. I am a state champion. I am a 4.0 student. Then you write down specifically what you're going to do to accomplish those long-term goals. So this is your daily practice. Do it, and I promise you will see results. Talent without standards is wasted. What type of standards are you going to hold yourself accountable for? Don't whine, don't complain, and don't make excuses. Always be on time. Make that a standard. And then be a hard worker. And you don't even have to be the hardest working person on the team. Be known as a hard worker. In 10 years, you're going to go to your high school reunion. Nobody's going to care how many touchdowns you scored. You're going to talk about the relationships, so invest in those relationships, okay? Don't be selfish. Selfish people suffer. Givers get rewarded. Be a giver. Show up every day with the right mindset and work your butts off, and I promise you great things will happen.
This is blasphemy. This is madness. This is a boom.
Broadcasting from the City of Champions, Brockton, Massachusetts, with your host, Keith Sinister One Hayes.
All right, it's your boy Sinister One broadcasting live from the City of Champions. You are watching The Booth, and as you guys can see, my guests are already here in the chat with me right now, hanging out with me, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So let me thank my guests for last week and supporters for hanging on with me and tuning into the show last week. Just great stuff with everybody coming on here and doing what they need to do. And you know, I applaud the people who support this show and who are sitting in the chat and things of that sort. I got to thank my sponsors and supporters of the show, Michael Douglas Barretto, MDB Electronics. If you got a controller and you need to get it fixed, get it out to him 24, 48 hours. He'll get your Xbox controller back to gaming. My artist, Vianna Marie, her music's out there everywhere. Vianna Marie, It's Personal was her last project, 494,000 streams. Please get out there and pump it up now. Tactical target systems, when I go to the range, those are those zombie targets that you see. Reach out to tacticaltargetsystems.com. I love Boston sports. That's my guy, Marlon Williams. If you guys are out here and you need one of those shirts that you see the Patriots players wearing or the Celtics or the Bruins guys wearing, that's a person you want to reach out to and get those shirts. He's down there in South Shore Plaza. And then also we have Kimberly Ann Empowerment Photography. Ladies, if you need to get some photos that you never thought that you would take, reach out to Kimberly Ann Empowerment Photography. And then Underwatch Protective Services, Mode Patrol and Foot Patrol, Armed Guards. If you need any type of protective services, reach out to my guy Daryl Smith, and then my buddy Carl Larry, Handyman Services. And before I even get into the news booth, I want to get into my two guests I got on tonight. I'm going to let them go around the horn. We got some stuff, as you guys see down here in the bottom right-hand corner. There it is, NCAA Final Four 2026. It's going to take place in Indianapolis, but we got a guy on here who knows what the hell he's talking about. So before I let him introduce himself, I'm going to introduce the first guest. Jeremie, let him know who you are and what you got going on and why you're on the show tonight.
Hey, Keith, thank you very much again for having me on. My name is Jeremie Marcellus. I am the volunteer president of Brockton Arts. We are a 501c3 nonprofit based in the great city of Champions, Brockton, Massachusetts. A part of our mission statement is just to support the arts in general in any way that we can, based in the city of Brockton, try to spread it to the Commonwealth to the best of our ability. Thank you very much.
Your volume is you're coming in kind of low. I'm not sure where your mic is. If you could.
Okay, can you hear me any better now?
Yep, you're still kind of low, but we got you.
Okay, I'll try to work on the mic and keep it short here.
There you go. That's better.
We have some great events coming up soon in the city over at the gallery at Enzo Flats, which is located at 50 Center Street. We have a monthly paint night that we do on the last Saturday of every month. It's $20 from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Guests are welcome to come in from 7 to 8, hang out in the gallery, socialize a little bit. Then from 8 to 9, we paint. We do this the last Saturday of every month. We've been doing it for over 3 years now. We have light appetizers for guests as well from the 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. period. We also have a free event coming up Saturday, April 11th, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's our Spring Forward Artist Exhibition at 50 Center Street, the gallery at Enzo Flats. This is a free and open event to the public. It costs nothing for people to come in. It's going to be from 5 to 9 p.m. You'll get to meet over a dozen artists that we have on display inside the gallery. All types of different things coming up. I'll do my best to plug some of them later. I don't want to take too much time.
All right, yeah, you gotta try to work on that mic because we can barely hear you, bro. And so, in the upper left-hand corner, I've got a guy on this show. Man, look! We booked this a while ago, and this guy here, he was the head coach of Chico State's men's basketball team, 250 plus wins. The Wildcats, a glorious career, 16 seasons. You've seen a lot of young men come through your organization. You've coached a lot of young men. During COVID, you went all the way to the regionals, the Western Regional Finals, pretty much. Introduce yourself. Let them know who you are, man.
Yeah, no, it's an honor to be here. I really appreciate you having me on. My name is Greg Clink. I spent 30 years as a college basketball coach, the last 17 years, 16 seasons because of COVID, as the head coach at Chico State University out in Chico, California. Chico State is a Division II program on the West Coast. Chico, for those of you that don't know, we're about 90 miles north of the capital of Sacramento. So we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Chico and Chico State is a big time college town. At one time, this is not something we've always bragged about, but at one time, Chico State was named the best party school in the country. So it is a fun place to go to school. I'm a graduate of Chico State. I went there, played there, graduated in '94, and in 2008 was fortunate enough to become the head coach at Chico State and spent my last 17 years of my career coaching there. Enjoyed a lot of success. Like you said, saw many young student athletes come through our program, which was the best part for me. Just being a mentor and a coach and a role model to them is really the most gratifying part of that. But yeah, it was a great ride. I still live in Chico, do a lot of motivational speaking now. But yeah, I had a great career. Spent a lot of time as an assistant coach prior to getting my head coaching opportunity at Chico State, but worked at a lot of different levels, was an assistant at the Division I level for two different schools and head coach at the D2 level. So yeah, it was a great ride.
Nice. And if you got any questions, Jeremie, you can just pop them right in, jump right in here. So as you know, we're here. Me and Jeremie are both here in Brockton, Massachusetts. And the funny thing is NCAA talk is hot here in Massachusetts. Yeah. Not just because it's the Final Four, but we also have AJ DeBonsa, who went to BYU, and they got bumped out. The word is that he's going to make a decision after the tournament's over and decide if he's going to declare himself for the NBA or if he's going to stay another year. And this is the question that I've been dying to ask an NCAA coach before we get into his career real quick. I'll tell you, I'm watching this March Madness tournament, and I see a kid like AJ DeBonta who's going to make this decision whether to stay in school or not and not get injured. And I'm looking at the upsets. A lot of people's brackets were busted that first batch of games. And I looked at this and I said, man, we really have never seen a March Madness like this in a long time. And I said to myself, I wonder, and I got to ask an NCAA coach this, does this, what we're seeing right now with March Madness and these brackets being busted early, we started seeing a little bit of this last year. But I feel like, Greg, that we're starting to see the effects of that NIL money going to these colleges, because you had a lot of schools who was the sexy school. Everybody wanted to go to the sexy schools. There were a lot of other schools that had NIL money. They had the money. They just weren't a sexy school. And now you're seeing guys like AJ DeBonsa, who everybody thought was going to a sexy school, and he didn't. He went to BYU, and there's money. So my question to you is, NIL, as much as people had complained and debated it, I feel like the talent pool is now getting to the schools that it needed to get to, and it's making for a more entertaining March Madness. And I got to ask you that, man.
I agree. First, with his decisions like he's making are becoming harder now because of the money. I mean, I don't know what his situation is in terms of the two different salaries, the one at BYU and the one he might get in the NBA. But a lot of these young players are being paid pretty good money. And so it makes that decision to jump to the NBA a little bit tougher, because you can make significant money, NIL money. And you before, when you're just on a full scholarship and you have the allure of money in the NBA or different pro levels, and it's an easy decision for them, right? They want to go make money. They want to support their families. Now, a lot of these guys and gals are getting paid a considerable amount of money to stay in college. And then the thing that you're seeing is I really believe in watching the tournament this year. It might be one of the best talented top to bottom tournaments that I've ever seen. And I was talking to one of my former assistants about this a few weeks ago, and I really believe like at the top levels, like the high major levels of college basketball right now, because of the NIL money and because of all, the schools that have the more money are being able to pay the better players, there are a lot more talented players deeper on rosters than we've ever seen before. And I don't see it ending. I don't know when I don't see it stopping. I don't see it ending. But I do believe that for as much as we complain about NIL money, not everybody's complaining, but there are a lot of people, purists that don't think it's right. But what you are seeing because of it is some of the best basketball that we've seen in a long time.
Jeremie, you want to jump in on that?
To say that I agree with everything that Coach just said right there. I would just expound on it a little bit and say that I think this is great overall, not just for the athletes, but for the schools. I think the schools are ultimately going to benefit from this because they can rely on that top tier talent staying in college longer. I think one of the toughest things these players go through is this idea that they're greedy and that they want to be, billionaires and things like that. I think these college players just want to be fairly compensated for the fact that the work that they do by being, student athletes brings in a lot of money to these schools. So I love NIL for one. I think these student athletes should be compensated. And I think it's a win-win for everyone involved, from the sponsors to the schools to the students. One question I would like to ask Coach is, if you are one of these players and you are possibly top 5 pick, and you receiving, top 5 NIL money at the same time, would you stay in school to continue out your education, or would you go pro?
Well, that's a good question, and I don't know that I can answer that. I played at a Division II non-scholarship school, so that's kind of out of my realm. But I really do believe that the college experience is so valuable. And I think the longer you can stay in college, the longer you can be around, other students your age. I think one of the things that these young guys that go to the NBA, maybe, we call them one and dones, right? The one and dones, when they go into the NBA after a year of college, it sounds very glamorous, but what people don't realize that playing college basketball and then playing in the NBA, it's a grind. It is a job and there is pressure. And for a 19, 20-year-old kid to have to go into the NBA and make that jump at 1 year out of college, it sounds glamorous and it's every basketball player's dream, but it's hard. And playing college basketball is hard and it's a business. But I do believe that there's a maturation process that takes place at college when you have coaches that care about you and love you and mentor you, and you're around people your own age that have the same, interests and values. So I'd like to say that, money being the same, that I think sticking around in college for an extra year or two is really, really beneficial. Not just from the financial standpoint, which a lot of these athletes are making a lot of money right now, but from a maturity standpoint, a happiness standpoint, an educational standpoint. I think it's really, really valuable. And I think that a lot of these and I think that's why we're seeing such an increase in talent on all these rosters, is because a lot of these guys and gals are making that decision to maybe stay another year and, collect NIL money, but play another year of college basketball because, and I'll give it to you on a smaller scale. Okay. I coached Division II basketball for 17 years. In those 17 years, I had 19 guys that played for me at Chico State that went on to play professionally. Now, none of them played in the NBA. I had one that played in the G League, but the rest of them all went overseas to play. Some of them made pretty good money. Some of them went over for an experience. What all of them, to a man, expressed after that experience is that it was nothing like their college experience, right? At Chico State, we developed a culture, we developed a brotherhood, we cared about them. Yes, we wanted to win and we wanted to win big, but at the end of the day, it was about their educations, it was about their experience, it was about mentoring them, about making sure that they left better equipped to tackle the world than when they got there, right? And so they had a tremendous experience as college basketball players. And because they loved their basketball experience so much, they wanted to go play professionally. They wanted to make money at it. They wanted to continue playing. But when you step into the professional realm of basketball or any sport, it becomes cutthroat. It becomes a business. And if you don't perform, you don't last. And the brotherhood and the camaraderie and the culture isn't always there when you're playing professionally. So that's a long answer to your question, Jeremie. But, I think that staying in college an extra year, an extra 2 years is extremely valuable from a maturation process and educational experience. So I would kind of lean that way, I think.
And this is just my opinion. If anybody's watching the Brockton, I don't know anything. This isn't a leaking. This is just my opinion. My opinion is I think AJ is going to stay a second year. The only real worry is that injury factor. If you can stay healthy, and if you've got a good solid program and your health program is, your medical team is good out there at BYU, I think you stay out there and do what you need to do, because like we said, that we saw it in the NFL. We saw guys in the NFL stick out an extra year, stay their junior year in the NFL because they wanted that that little bit more NIL money. Shedeur Sanders is a great example of someone who stuck around and ends up getting the big payday when he finally left the NFL. He was sitting on a bunch of NIL money. So, Kevin Jeffries is in the chat. Kevin Jeffries seems different. He thinks AJ's decision is going to be he's going to leave. He thinks he's going to leave for the NBA.
And you're right. You always, you think about that injury part of it that you're talking about, and I think that's a big part of it too, is that's the one thing you worry about. You stay, something happens injury wise. I mean, that's the risk you run. But that's a great point.
But here's the funny thing too. And you got these guys, okay, he goes and he declares himself and he gets drafted. I feel like a freshman coming in there and declaring himself, I think that puts a target on your back in the NBA. I think a lot of guys now think, oh, who does he think he is? Now, that injury risk that you thought about in college, guess what? That injury risk is also there in the NBA if you've got a guy that doesn't like you, or has something against you because you're this young kid, and now you get that hard foul. And, that injury risk is there on both sides. That's what I would tell him,
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And and like I said, I do think it's we don't see it, but it's extremely hard. Is you're stepping in and you're playing with men. You are playing with men. You're playing with guys that are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years older than you that are men. And I'll just put it in perspective again from my experience. When I was coaching at Chico State, you can't do this anymore because of the transfer portal. But the way we really built the program at Chico State is we would get a majority of the players we recruited were high school freshmen. We'd get them, we would redshirt them, we would develop them physically, academically, mentally. They'd live in the weight room for a year. They'd learn our system. And by the time they're juniors and seniors, they're 22, 23 years old. And there's a difference even between an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old, 23-year-old. There's not only a physical difference, but there's a mental difference. There's a mental difference in terms of how you approach practice every day, how you attack your nutrition, your rehabilitation, your academics, your game, So you think about the difference between an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old. Well, think about the difference between that 18, 19-year-old and a 28-year-old, a 32-year-old. I mean, it's light years in terms of how those guys think that have been in that league multiple years and how they operate.
Jeremie, you got anything?
No, I agree with everything that Coach said earlier. It may have been a long answer, but it was a good answer because it showed all the nuances that goes into these type of decisions. I personally think that AJ is going to stay an additional year just to get his body right. To add on to what Coach said, I think he's going to be a great athlete, a great professional. However, I think by giving himself that extra year to play on that college level, live in that gym, put on more weight, so that when he goes into the league and he's dealing with grown men who have families and kids and things like that, it is different, and they will, test him, and I want to see him be successful. So I think he'll stay another year. I hope he stays another year, and if he does, He's going to put on the type of weight and muscle and develop a better mentality so that when he goes professional, he has that much more success.
Yeah, I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him stay a year and let's see BYU possibly go deeper next year. Because now they know that they have him. They know what he can do. But now they know what they need to do to put situational players around him to help him win a game. Because he put up 35 of the 70-something points in the game that they lost. So
let me ask you a question. You know, you guys being from, you know, the same hometown as him, when he was coming out of high school and making that decision as to where he was going to go to college, where did you think he was going to go? Where did you want him to go?
Everybody here had him going to a sexy school. I thought he was going to North Carolina. I thought that's where he was going, was North Carolina. Everybody pretty much had him here at a sexy school. And when they said BYU, I think everybody here, I don't know about you, Jeremy, but I think a lot of people were like, BYU, that's a Mormon school. You know, it was like, what the? Yeah, but again, that NIL money is different. You know, they got money, you know, so right. Go ahead, Jeremy.
No, I agree. I think a lot of people may not understand the nuances of how this works. Really thought he was going to go to you know, one of those sexy schools, as you said, like a Duke or North Carolina. But once I saw he was going to Utah Prep, in my mind, I said, okay, she's going to go to a school in Utah, college in Utah, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being a Utah Jazz in the future. So I wasn't surprised when he ended up going to BYU. Once I saw he was doing his high school stuff at Utah Prep, I said, that state's not going to let him go. You don't go to BYU, you go to Utah State or whatever, some school in Utah. You know, I mean, when you're a talent on his level, which is another reason why I wanted to see him and talents like him stay in school longer and all the way to get their real education, you know, get their degree. So you understand, especially something in business. So when they have this money, they don't end up on those shows like Going for Broke and things, right?
Right. His dad has a good head on his shoulders, and his dad is, you know, got him on the right path. Question for you, Greg. Transfer portal, pros and cons, because we're hearing a lot about this transfer portal. We didn't hear much about the transfer portal years ago, but now we've got this NIL. You know, we're seeing a lot of players in all different sports, women's and men's. That transfer portal, we're hearing that more and more. From your perspective, sir, what is your pros and cons of the transfer portal for a school?
Well, and I don't know, I'll start with this, and I don't know that this is a pro or a con. It's changing the levels of college basketball. The high major schools are getting better. The low major Division I schools, the ones that don't have the same type of NIL resources, they're suffering. You know, their talent is being picked off by the schools that have more money. And I'll take it down to the Division II level. At one time, the conference that we played in it when I was at Chico State, we played in the California Collegiate Athletic Association. That at one time was one of the best Division II programs in the country. And it's still good, but the level of play the last year or two is not the same as what it was 3, 4, 5 years ago, because anytime you have a player, let's say at the Division II level now, and they are good, they are being recruited by a Division I program. Okay, they're being picked off. And so it's almost like the Division II level is a farm system now for the Division I level, the low major Division I level, the mid-major Division I level. Those low major schools that don't have a lot of NIL money, they become a farm system for the mid-majors and the high majors. See what I'm saying?
No, I fully see what you're saying. Yeah, that's scary at the same time.
It's changing the level of basketball that we're playing. So I think that if you're a Division II coach or a low major Division I coach, I would say that's a con, right? That's not something that you want to see. We spend a lot of time as coaches, we spend a lot of time developing our players. And it's really tough to swallow when you take a player and you put that time and energy into them and you develop them and they become better and they become an elite player, and then someone comes in, offers them X amount of dollars, and you can't compete with it, and they're gone. And you can't blame the kids either. You can't blame it at all. You can't, and a lot of schools like when I was at Chico State, we operated with partial scholarships. So we're trying to scrape a roster together with partial scholarships at times. And when you have somebody on a partial scholarship and all of a sudden a Division I comes in and says, not only am I going to give you a Division I full scholarship, but you're going to get $25,000 in NIL money, you don't argue with that kid. You help them get there, right? Because you want to see them succeed and you want them to benefit from their talent. But it's tough because then you have to go out and you have to go find another player and you develop another player. So I would say that's the con of it for coaches. I would say it's probably a pro for the players to have that ability to leave a situation for a better situation. That's obviously a positive for the student athletes. Back in the day, before the transfer portal really changed, if you were going to transfer from Division I to Division II, you could do that and play right away. But you couldn't transfer from Division II to Division I without sitting out a year. Once the transfer portal rules changed and you could transfer anywhere at any time, that obviously changed things for Division II. Because here's the reality of it. There's not a college basketball player in the country that grew up wanting to be and dreamt of being a Division II player. Like when I was 12 years old, man, I wanted to play in the NBA, right? And then when I decided, well, maybe that's not it, but I want to play division. Never once did I say, oh, I want to be a Division II basketball player. So when you have a really good Division II basketball player and they leave for a Division I program, even if the program isn't as in good a shape as your Division II program, you can't blame them. Their dream is to play Division I basketball. So I get it. So probably con for coaches, but pro for players to be able to better their situations, maybe leave a situation that isn't conducive for them. So, there's arguments on both sides of it, but it's definitely changed the landscape of college basketball at all levels.
Wow, Jeremie, that's crazy. Oh, Jeremie.
Yeah, I'm sorry, give me 1 second here. Yeah, Coach brought up a great point. That's actually something I thought about. Schools that have these players that are good and their players eventually get picked off by D1 schools and things like that. What type of rules do you think should be in place or actually could be in place, Coach, to protect those D2 schools? Like, for example, if I have a player that I have on a partial scholarship and he gets picked up by a Division I school, is there something in place in order for that Division I school to properly compensate the D2 school the same way they're going to be compensating that player? Because the way I would imagine it would be, hey, if your scholarship at D2 is $50,000 a year, and we come and take one of your scholarship players, we should have to reimburse you your scholarship funds and something on top of that as well.
I never heard that argument. I never thought of that. But
that this is a business, the nuanced business, and people have to do a better job, whether you're a D1 versus a D2, sort of looking out for each other. At least being mindful in that way. Aside from the professional aspect of it, of hey, I'm a coach. Forget the money. I've been working with this guy. I want to develop him and see him be better. And here comes this other guy with more money, essentially stealing him from me. As a professional courtesy, there isn't much courtesy there.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I never heard that really brought up that way. And I don't know how realistic it is to compensate, and here's the reality of it. And here's what we see when we turn on ESPN, right? We see the Dukes and the Michigans and the North Carolinas and the Alabama football, and they talk about all this NIL money. And at those places, it's real. Like there are people, fans, boosters that are invested in those programs at a level where they do not have issues coming up with NIL money. Now let's take I keep using the expression low major, but let's take a Montana, an Idaho, a Sac State. I'm giving you schools and kind of out in my area here. That yes, they have NIL money, but that is something that needs to be fundraised every year. That is not plentiful at a lot of those schools like we see, the big time schools get. So if you're asking a school now to not only fund an NIL program but compensate other schools for players that it's just financially, I don't think it's realistic. And I don't know that there is an answer, Jeremie. I don't know that there's a way to make everybody happy in terms of this. Your coaches are going to have players that are leaving, but I think that what you need to do as a coach is you need to wrap your head around the reality of it, and you need to adjust. You need to adjust to the times. And I always say I spent 30 years coaching, and there were always things that we had to adjust on, whether it was technology, the way we broke down film, coaching technique, the way we recruited, tools that we used to recruit, in terms of technology. Well, now we got to adjust. Coaches have to adjust to the fact that you're not going to probably have a good player for 4 years. And you're certainly not going to have an all-league player for 4 years unless you're at one of those higher levels where you can compensate them for their talent. And that's just the reality. You just got to find a new way to do it.
That's crazy. And, like here, and it's funny because when we talk about this NIL money, it's not just basketball, it's not just football either. Like up here in Boston, one of the big events that we have up here in Worcester and on the Charles River is the Riata. That Riata brings in, holy crap, so there's got to be NIL money for that. You've got all these teams and leagues now. You've got a professional women's volleyball league now that has to be fed with college players. So this NIL, this NIL money is coming in handy. One of the questions I have for you in regards to this, this NIL money and the money coming in from the boosters in some of these schools, back in the day, you had to have a Cinderella story to boost your recruiting. You had, like, years ago when Gonzaga ended up having one of the biggest upsets in March Madness, and that changed their whole program. That changed the whole entire Gonzaga program to where they became this top 20 team. Oregon Ducks, they had one of these big upsets. All of a sudden, it boosts their recruiting. Why is that? What happens when you have something like that happen, Coach?
Well, I think that a big win, a tournament run, really puts your school on the map. And college athletics does a lot of things. And one of the things it does is, especially at the highest levels, is I always used to say I used to tell our players, we're a walking advertisement for Chico State. When we walk through an airport, when we go to a hotel, when we walk into a restaurant and we're wearing Chico State basketball on our shirts, we are a walking advertisement for the university, and we need to conduct ourselves a certain way, right? Well, take that a step further. When you make a run, you have a school that makes a run in the NCAA tournament, and young people are seeing, Gonzaga is a perfect example, right? I mean, that basketball program drives enrollment. There are kids that go to Gonzaga specifically because they watch Gonzaga basketball growing up, right? And you could say that for a lot of, look at Duke University was a prestigious, high academic institution well before Mike Krzyzewski took over the program, right? And they had success in basketball before he took over the program, but he really put Duke basketball on the map and turned them into what they are today. They don't have problems with enrollment. People see Duke and they think the basketball team, and they look at the Cameron Crazies and look at that atmosphere, and it's an attractive place. Not only is it one of the most prestigious universities in the country, but it's a fun place to go to school because of that basketball program and what the culture is there. So it does the same thing for recruiting. You have a great run in an NCAA tournament, a big win. You make a Final Four when maybe you're not expected to. That helps recruiting. You sell that the next year. We won 3 West Region championships at Chico State. We would sell that hard. We would bring guys into the office. We'd have the trophy sitting on the desk. We would have things on the walls that talked about the winning championships, and and we would talk about that. If you come here, you're going to win, and you're going to win big. And so that's what doing that on a national scale in the NCAA tournament does for your school and your program.
And the other thing too is social media. And there was a time, and a great example of that here is Bill Belichick, Coach Bill Belichick, coach of the Patriots. When the Patriots released him, one of the things I said was, the generation has passed coaches like Belichick. Mm-hmm. The first thing that I noticed from a professional standpoint, when Belichick left the Patriots, the first thing I noticed was that players on social media went right through the roof, from Tom Brady to everybody. It was one of these things that we saw when Tom Brady left. And it's become this thing now where social media, and you were a 15, 17-year coach too. Social media used to be this thing where it was frowned upon, but now the schools and now these pro teams are finding out that social media is now part of bringing money in to your team now. So when you tell a player, hey, don't tweet, don't be on Instagram and all this, you're hurting the team now. So now there's teams now that designate time frames and periods for people to be on. How do you take that in as a coach? Because I know you came up during that. You're in that transition where schools didn't want kids on their players on social media, but then all of a sudden now people are coming to your school because they're seeing this player on social. So how do you?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. Early on when, and I'm going to date myself now, but I was an assistant coach at UC Davis back in the early 2000s, and we were talking about MySpace, right? MySpace was the thing, and then Facebook, and now obviously Instagram's been around for a while. But early on in my coaching career, we would really talk to our players, our student athletes, about social media and what you're putting on there and how it can affect you. Later on, I said very, very little about it. We would talk to them about just be careful about what you post. Don't post something that's going to hurt you or hurt the university. But it's become something that, I wouldn't say but 99% of college kids are on and are taking advantage of and building a brand through. So you can't control, and this is just my opinion. Some people may have other opinions, but you can't really control the amount of time they spend on social media. You try and educate them in terms of what they put on there so that it doesn't come back at them. But it's a monster, right? And it's getting bigger all the time. Student athletes, students, people are not only on it, but to your point, universities are using it to drive fundraising, drive ticket sales, drive enrollment. And it's something that's there and something that, people are taking advantage of and using to build a brand for the universities, for the NIL funds. Student athletes obviously are using it. So it's ever evolving for sure.
Jeremie, anything you want to add to that one?
Yes, social media in and of itself is ever evolving. It has entirely changed our culture. From a business point of view, all I can say is we over at Brockton Arts, we do utilize social media a lot, and particularly for the fundraising that we do and for the events that we do. I'll put it to you this way. I was a kid in high school and in college who liked to throw all the parties. And I remember my budget for promoting the parties, printing out the flyers, things like that, will be anywhere from 18 to 20% of everything, right? With a tool like social media, I only need maybe 1 to 3% of my budget because I'm just going to put a paid advertisement out there. I spend $1 a day on a paid advertisement on social media, like something like Facebook for our paint nights that we do on the last Saturday of every month, for example. I'll spend $1 a day on a Facebook post that will get me at least one ticket sale every other day, versus that same media by how many dollars did it take for me to print out those flyers, then stand out there and hand them out to 500 people at the bus stop or something like that, right? Versus now, I put a post up, I boost that post, and that's my marketing now. And we're averaging anywhere from on the low end, 25 guests, on the high end, 50 guests. We had 50 guests for our paint night. this past weekend, and we actually didn't spend $1 on paid advertisement. We just kept resharing the posts inside of people's different groups and things like that. So a tool like social media, there's so many different ways you can utilize it for marketing purposes. You know, you do the right type of marketing, it usually leads to the right type of dollars that come in behind that. And the last piece I'll say is it's good to hear that these students are getting some type of media training, let's say from the if not from the school, from their coaches, telling them to be mindful and things like that of what it is that they post, so it doesn't come back to harm them in the end. And the last point I'll make is, you know, Duke is a trigger word for me. So I've been rewatching the Braylon Mullins highlight from the other day. It's been keeping me smiling from ear to ear. I am not a Duke fan. I respect Duke, but if I live, I'll put it this way. If I lived in North Carolina, I'm Tar Heels all day. I am not a Duke fan. I respect them. I respect Duke. Like the same way I respect the Yankees as a Red Sox fans. You know, but oh man, I am down with Duke. I'll leave it at that.
Craziness. Now let's get into the little conversation. We got the Final Four coming up this weekend. We got Michigan against Arizona. We've got Illinois against UConn. UConn consistently, what a program. UConn, unbelievable down here. And you know, even though we're celebrating the men's UConn team making the Final Four, today was a dreary day in Connecticut. In the sports booth later on, I'll be talking about the Connecticut Sun bought WNBA. Great team, but they've been bought. They're moving to Texas. The rumors was that the Wahlbergs of Wahlberg Burgers was going to be buying the Connecticut Sun and moving them to Boston to play at the TD Garden. I guess that didn't happen. It fell through. Connecticut Sun released a statement today that the team will be moving to Texas. People are not happy, and I get it. But like I said, the Final Four is this weekend. You know, even though we had some upsets and stuff, we still got the top teams have made it to this Final Four, so some people's brackets might be saved. As I said, we've got Michigan and Arizona. We got Illinois and UConn. I'm going to start off with the coach. What are your thoughts? Who do you like? Strengths?
Well, I can't wait for this Arizona-Michigan game. I think it's going to be, one of the best games that we see all year long. You got two, all four teams are just phenomenal, but that is a heavyweight matchup right there. Arizona, I've watched more Arizona basketball this season than I have Michigan basketball, but, I think I read Michigan beat four teams in the tournament by double digits. I mean, they are just steamrolling people. Arizona, just the way they play, they're so explosive offensively. I think that's going to be the game that I'm most excited for. I think it's a coin toss. Like if you were to ask me who do you think's going to win, I'm not going out on a limb here. From the beginning, I picked Arizona to win it all. And I know a majority of the people probably in the country maybe did the same. It's not like I'm picking anybody, an upset there, but they are an elite team. Michigan's an elite team. I think that's going to be the game to watch. But I'm also a big UConn fan in terms of how they play. I haven't seen a lot of Illinois. Watched them obviously a couple days ago, but that's going to be a great game too. This was kind of funny. So I'm watching the Duke UConn game the other day, and I'm sitting. I got a brand new lazy boy chair, okay, and I'm sitting in my chair watching basketball. Played golf earlier that day, so I'm watching the game, and they're up 15, and I kind of doze off, and I wake up a little bit later, and it's in single digits, and I'm like, okay, we got a game, and then at the end, I got okay, Duke's they got this, right? They're inbound the ball, get fouled, go to the free throw line, and the way that game ended, man, I've been involved in a lot of last second shots. A lot of them have gone my way, a lot of them haven't gone my way, but that was an all-timer, man. Just the way that whole thing transpired in the last few seconds of that game. Was amazing. So I think the Illinois UConn game is going to be great, but the one I'm really excited for is Arizona, Michigan.
And it's funny you talked about it. We were talking about social media as a positive. Buzzer beaters used to be buzzer beaters have always been this thing in March Madness, but because of social media now, a buzzer beater like the Yukon, the traction that gets, and like you were just saying about recruiting and getting people to come in, that traction from that win from now until this game that's critical. That is like critical exposure, because now you're seeing it every day. You're not just seeing it that night on ESPN and then people forget about it. You're going to see this buzzer beater all the way up on social media and reels until this matchup begins. And it's going to...
Well, you know how it works too. The more you watch, the more you get fed, right? And so you're right. It is out there and in our face, and it was exciting. And here's the coach in me, right? The minute that happened, yes, excited for the guy that hit the shot, but my heart went out to it was a boozer that made the pass that got deflected and stole. I mean, my heart went out to him. That kid played his butt off, and that's, this is how it is in sports. You only, we tend to, as coaches and players, think about the things that went wrong more than the things that went right. And I do that. I did that as a coach. I do that with my golf game. I might shoot a great round, but I'm thinking about the double bogey I had on hole 8, right? And that kid is going to be thinking about that. That's who I really felt bad for was, he played a great game, and that's the one that's going to keep him up at night. But just an exciting ending. I think the tournament's been great. And I think this Final Four is going to be an all-timer.
As a coach, how do you talk to a kid like that? Because that's crushing. That's crushing. It's not something you could just talk to him that night. It's something you probably got to reach out to him during the week or a little bit after the season's over, correct?
Lots of hugs, lots of telling them I love you and appreciate you. You try and get them to think about all the positives that they did, not only in that game, but all year long. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. You just try and you're not going to, take their mind off it and make them feel a lot better about it. But for me, it's about compassion, right? You got to be compassionate and one thing I would try and do as a coach too is try and take some of the heat off him, in terms of, well, if I would have done this, we wouldn't have been in that situation. And that's hard to do in that situation, but you just try and take it off them. You try and rally the team around them. Let them know that yes, it's important to us, but it's not life and death. There's going to be a lot more positive moments in your career moving forward than that one. So, but it's hard. It's hard as competitors. You think about, well, if I would have done this, if I could have done this better, if I would have made that shot, if I wouldn't have turned it over here. You're constantly racking your brain for the what ifs, and that's the hard thing about being an athlete.
And when you came on as head coach for the first time, you finally get this job, you're announced as being a head coach, you're now this guy that everybody's going to look to. Who did you pull from? Who were your inspirations that you pulled from and you said, I'm going to take a little bit from this guy because I saw how this guy did things growing up. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, that's a great way. So I've had some definite mentors in my life. The college coach that I played for and then worked for a couple years his name is Puck Smith. Still a mentor to me. I mean, he's in his 80s now. He still lives in Chico. I love the guy. I learned a ton playing for him and coaching with him. And then really another guy that I worked for at 2 different schools. I was an assistant at UC Davis for a year, and then 2 years at UC Santa Barbara for Bob Williams. Bob's retired now, but Bob was a highly successful Division I coach. Spent the last, I think, 18 years of his career at UC Santa Barbara, won a Division II national championship at UC Davis with no scholarships. And people don't realize that they were the only school in the tournament. They were in a non-scholarship league. They won the national championship with 0 scholarships. So you talk about a guy that could coach and motivate and build culture. He's one of the biggest influences in my life. I just talked to him on the phone yesterday. But going back to like what you asked, where do I pull from? Those 2 guys would probably be the biggest inspirations to me and who I learned the most about in terms of team building, culture building. coaching, dealing with student athletes. So those are my two guys that really I leaned on a lot throughout my career.
Jeremie?
No, I just wanted to piggyback on what Coach said regarding providing support for a student athlete like that who's going through something. Let them know that you love them, let them know that you care, and things like that. However, just to switch gears, me putting my fanatic hat back on, this was a Duke player who made that mistake. I was jumping for joy. I wasn't a fan. I wasn't a fan of the father bruiser when he played at Duke. I wasn't a fan of him when he played for the Jazz and all the other teams. So one of the twins blow it for Duke like that again. And again, this is another layer that I want to add to this. Anytime I fill out my Final Four bracket, I automatically, on both brackets, for the men's bracket and the women's bracket, I automatically put UConn in both in the Final Four. And I figure with Gino and them over there, I'll at least shoot 50%, and I always have. And UConn is one of my top 3 favorite college basketball teams to watch. Is them, Texas. I love Texas. And then I love Boston College because, again, I'm just being a local guy and everything. I think the NCAA tournament it truly lives up to its name year after year for me. It truly is March Madness. And not for nothing, when I compare the NCAA to the NBA, the NCAA always has this edge to me, even in regular season games. It seems to me every possession just counts at the college level. I've never felt comfortable with any lead when watching a college basketball game, even in the final seconds, because I've seen those teams get 4-point plays. I mean, I'm sitting here talking all this trash about Duke, but I remember years ago when Duke played Maryland, and there were chants. This is back when Jay Williams was their point guard, who was absolutely amazing. And Maryland was chanting, overrated, overrated. And Duke was down, I think, 9 or 10 with like 40-something seconds to go. And they came back to win that game. And again, just a testament. I love NCAA basketball. I love the tournament. Every possession truly counts. And we have to remember these are student athletes playing. These are young men and women out there, and we even as fanatics tend to take things a little bit too far. My heart at the end of the day truly does go out, to a team like Duke to lose the way that they did. For Cam to, I don't see Cam as being the reason why they lost in the top game. There were a lot of things that happened in that possession and before that possession that contributed to Duke not coming out with a victory, But hopefully, and as far as my Final Four picks go, in terms of to win it all, I don't like to admit this, but I think Arizona is going to win it all. I think they'll beat Michigan. I think Michigan plays fantastic basketball, but Arizona has an explosive offense, and I think they're going to pull it out and win it all. In my heart of hearts, I hope UConn, finishes my version of a Cinderella story. You beat Duke, and then you win the tournament altogether. So I'm pulling for UConn to win in the end, but I think Arizona's going to pull it out for the men's. And as far as the women's goes, I think Gino and the UConn women are going to pull it out again, and I think they're going to win a national championship for the women's.
Yeah, you talk about one of the greatest coaches in any sport. I mean, Gino Auriemma is just amazing. Just the dynasty that he has and the consistency year to year. I don't watch a ton of women's basketball, but when I see UConn women playing, I put that game on and I watch because it's an absolute clinic on both ends of the floor. How good those women are.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about it because, WNBA, I've been a fan of WNBA for a while, and I was telling people, hey, they play some good ball, people. You need to start watching. And then, COVID hit, and then people were looking for stuff to watch. People started looking in on WNBA games once they started letting people, watch games and go to games, and, people started saying, and then you had the whole Brittany Griner thing that brought eyes on the product. Even though it was a bad story, it brought eyes on that WNBA product to the point when she came back, people went in droves, and then Caitlin Clark. And that that whole college roster that got drafted that year with Caitlin Clark was just stacked. Caitlin Clark wasn't even the best player in that draft that year. It was the defensive Sue, what's her name? But we're seeing WNBA transition now to where they have to go to bigger stadiums and things of that sort. It's so crazy to see when a sport transitions. Wow, we're at 7:55. Before we get out of here, one of the things, Coach, I got to ask you about that I hate right now. I'm not happy at the fact that betting is big. It's nationwide. It's in your phones. It's in your hands. And, you know, the fact that years ago UNLV program was pretty much done because of the betting scandal in Vegas. And every team was hands off from Vegas. Nobody put a team in. And now all of a sudden we have the Raiders in Vegas. We have a baseball team in Vegas. We have all these teams now in Vegas. You're watching games now. I was pissed last year when the NFL started putting spreads up during the game. And I think a lot of people complained because that went away. What are your thoughts on betting? And it's the phenomenon, the explosion of sports betting, because I have this love-hate relationship right now with it.
As a coach, especially at the Division I level, it's terrifying. At the Division II level, it's something that we talked about, but there are no lines on Division II games. You know what I'm saying? So, but every Division I game has a line on it, and the education that needs to happen on a yearly basis and consistently throughout the year with your student athletes on what not to do, how to handle it if somebody approaches you for information. It's daunting. And I know at times we see players, teams, programs that come under scrutiny, get in trouble, legally, eligibility wise, because of gambling. And I really believe that it's happening more than we even know. And I'll just give you a quick backstory. So when I was in my mid-20s, I got a job as an assistant coach at UC Santa Barbara. And one of my jobs was to bring in speakers to talk to the team. And I got connected with this FBI agent that worked out of Los Angeles. And he was, now this is 20, almost 30, 20 some years ago, 30 years ago.
Okay.
Anyway, he was in charge of gambling operations for the FBI. And so he drove up to Santa Barbara and he spoke to our team and he told stories about what happens to college athletes when they become entangled in this web of gambling and shaving points and betting either on your team or against your team or feeding information. I mean, and you go down a rabbit hole with how you get tangled in this, and once you're in, you don't get out. And so I really think, and I do think that schools at the highest levels really educate their student athletes about this, because you have to. There are so many people out there that are trying to make money off of college athletes. They're trying to make money off their name, their likeness, apparel, and they're trying to make money off them gambling. Whether getting them to do things that they know they shouldn't do or trying to get information regarding their team, other teams, games. So it is a slippery slope. It's obviously a big business and it's not going away. You look at all the advertisements that are done for FanDuel and, all these gambling websites.
I'm not happy at the fact that ESPN, which is supposed to be bipartisan, they're supposed to be partial. And they bought a betting site, and I'm still not happy at the fact that ESPN now owns a sport betting site that people can bet on. I think that's horrible. I think that I don't know how the hell that even happened in this world, but it's happening. And it's scary for you to say that this was 20, 30 years ago that you were saying that this with the FBI agent. And it's funny when you talk about the spiraling. There's an NBA story out there right now with a bunch of NBA players who were caught up where they fell behind at the casino owing money, and that turned into the stuff that you talk about. They fall in, and you don't know if these guys are being losers on purpose. You don't know if they're ending up being set up to lose, and then you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But yeah, if you guys didn't hear it, there is an NBA story out there. Several players were caught up. This week we had several players catfished by a porn star. And these aren't young guys like you would say. You would mentor kids. These are grown men with wives and girlfriends and stuff still getting catfished by fake porn stars for money. And it's like, did you not learn what your coach and mentor, like Coach Clink, told you? I mean,
well, and it's hard, when we were all in our early 20s at one time, and we think we're invincible, right? And we don't ever think anything bad's going to happen to us. And in this day and age, it's so hard for kids. I think we talked about social media earlier. There are so many more things out there: cell phones, pictures, videos, social media, gambling, things that we probably didn't have to deal with at least as much when we were in our early 20s. So it's tough. And, you just try and educate them the best you can and hope they make the right decisions. But it's got to be a constant conversation, especially around this gambling situation.
Oh, man. And before, I got to let these guys get ready to go. We're at 8 o'clock. Let me just blow through these topics real quick. I'm not even going to be talking about the topics tonight. We don't have no time. In the news booth, hey, we've got this young boy who was run over and killed. His family is looking for answers. If you have any answers as to the death of Lianes Brandao, who was down here at the Cardoza Cafe, please call Brockton Police. Also, I have a friend of mine, Glenn, who also sent me a message. Actually, this happened right down the street from my house. There was a young man, Christopher, and his girlfriend, I believe. Everybody knows them on the east side. She's in a wheelchair. They walk together. They have a dog. Well, the other night, they were walking, and a car hit the two of them and dragged him. He was air flighted to Boston. There is a GoFundMe set up for his recovery by his daughter, Emily Proctor. So if you guys can jump on there and support the GoFundMe for Support Chris, they're trying to raise $15,000 for his medical bills. He's actually, I believe they said he was also homeless. So if you guys can reach out, donate now. That's the link right there. And then in the entertainment booth, my guy Santi, who is known as Crazy Kulo, he's retiring from radio as of today. So big congrats to him. It was nice to hear their 96.9 to give him props because he came up through 96.9. And even though they're a competing station, they gave their props. And then there's the story right there in the sports booth, Connecticut Sun, stating that they have been bought. They're going to Texas. And then Kelsey Fitzsimmons, the state trooper, who was shot by the other state trooper in her house. She's been found acquitted. I was very vocal on this show. They made her look like she was a criminal and a victim when she was suffering from postpartum. She had called and asked for help. The police had went to her house to take away her service revolver because her therapist had said, hey, she's a danger to herself, and then something happened. She ended up getting shot. And when she got shot, they tried to spin this and make her the criminal, and it should have never happened. Postpartum is very real, people. Postpartum in women is very real. It's very dangerous, and we need to put more eyes on this. And then, hey, the No Kings was this weekend. Big groups were out, record numbers. So good job for everybody who turned out. And then I talked about this story earlier this week. You guys saw the Apache helicopters outside of Kid Rock's house, and a lot of you were saying there's no big deal about that. Yeah, there is a big deal about taking Apache helicopters and flying them to Kid Rock's house for an Instagram photo. Guess what? The whole entire air crew team has been suspended. So it doesn't matter that you're friends with President Trump. You can't take Apache helicopters and fly them to Kid Rock's house for an Instagram photo. So, and then lastly, Secret Service agent to Jill Biden shot himself in the leg at the airport. I saw people making jokes and things about that, but if you've been following this show, The Booth, I've been talking about this issue. Secret Service agents carry one of two guns, the Glock 19 Gen 4 and the SIG P320. If you've been following this show, we've been talking about the SIG P320 is a firearm that's been accidentally discharging while in the holster. We've had federal agents, we've had police officers, we've had people injured on the job because this gun fires off. Sig Sauer is out of New Hampshire, and they already claim that there is an issue with the trigger. They don't know what it is. They had a recall on the firearms. Everybody had to send the firearms in and had them repaired, and they're still having the same problem. Now this story is going to get national attention, And I'll tell you right now, it's not good for SIG. This is the type of stuff that probably could end the entire SIG Sawyer business. So, good stuff. Before I let my head coach up here say his goodbyes, I'm going to let Jeremie go first, man. Let him know what you got going on. And shout out your social media.
Yes, if anybody ever wants to contact me, they can contact me on Facebook or Instagram. It's Jeremie, Jeremie, middle initial G. Last name is Marcellus. That is Marcellus. Again, president of Brockton Arts. We're a 501c3 nonprofit based in Brockton, Massachusetts, supporting the arts. The last thing I'll just say about any other topics today, just to pivot back over to the gambling and sports. Me and my younger brother, we have a podcast we used to do. And one of our last episodes we did was regarding gambling in the sport. My personal background, my professional background is that I work as a nurse, specializing in substance abuse and psych. I say all that to say this. There is no greater threat to professional sports or college sports or sports as we know it than gambling. Gambling leads and ties into so many other issues. And just from a substance abuse side, I'll put it to you this way. Back in the day when I was working the floor, at least 80% of the clients I would take care of would have some type of co-diagnosis. So, hey, you're addicted to, heroin and you're a smoker, or you're an alcoholic and you do pills, right? But nowadays, what you see is that second diagnosis is gambling. And whether you're an 18-year-old kid who's in treatment right now to treat you for heroin, which you have DraftKings on your phone, or you're a 65-year-old woman who's been an alcoholic for over 50 years, and you have DraftKings on your phone as well. It goes into every demographic. It leads to the sport not being properly appreciated because people, instead of looking at what you did on the court in terms of a win-loss factor, they're thinking, did I hit my parlay? I think a minuscule example of this is, even though it doesn't involve money, it's what you call it, these fantasy leagues, right? You have people, and I felt subject to this, right? I didn't do fantasy league for years until to past like 3 or 4 years. Then I found myself after a game, instead of appreciating the game, I'm upset because my guy didn't score enough points. That's a quick transition into, I don't give a damn about the game. I just lost $50. Right. And I think it's a threat on so many different levels. And to add on to what Coach said, bringing in an FBI agent to try to explain those nuances to these students. Gotta remember, these are kids. They don't understand on the college level. And then on the professional level, I mean, we saw that story with the former Celtics player who's now plays for the Heat. His name escapes me right now. Terry Rozier, Scary Terry. He's essentially been out of the league this entire year due to a gambling incident. He was tied into that incident that you spoke about earlier with Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups is one of my favorite all-time players. And now I got to look at him a certain type of way because of gambling. It's one of those things where I think it easily corrupts so much. And if we don't put on some real reins on it, I was one of those people, Keith, who was absolutely set aside by the fact that I'm seeing advertisements for gambling in the middle of games. I think that's ridiculous. People want to gamble. It's a whole show in and of itself. So I'll just leave it at that. I think gambling is a major, major threat. It's not to be taken lightly, and we need to put some real safety guards on this before it truly ruins the sports that we love. And thank you very, very much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
No problem. And I got the head coach, Gregory Clink, is up here with us. Great show. If you had to drop a gem on us before we get out of here, sir, what would you drop for us?
Oh, I first of all, I've had a great time talking to you guys. It's been an absolute joy. I can be reached my Facebook, Instagram. It's just my first name, Greg, Greg, my last name, Clink, Clink. I got a website, gregclink.com. I just mentioned I'm retired from coaching now, doing a lot of motivational speaking, both in person. We'll do things virtually. So if you want more information on that, hit me up either on social media or on my website. Got my email on there too. I think the one thing that I'd leave you with, we've obviously talked a lot about college sports, college athletics, basketball. There's a lot out there, a lot of positive, a lot of negative. at the end of the day, it's still a great thing, right? It's still, I really believe about the student athletes, and it needs to continue to stay that way. As we talk about social media and gambling and all this stuff, there's everybody's got they want their hand in it and they want to make money off it, but we need to try and keep it as pure as we can. Keep it about the education, keep it about the student athlete. And if we can hang on to a little bit of that, it'll still be a great product.
Man, great stuff. Wow, this was a fast out. Let me get into my outro banners here so we can get ready to get out of here. Those are the beanies that I had sold. They're all sold out. They're gone. So thank you, everybody, for buying those beanies. Those are the shows that I produced. The Booth, which you're watching right now. Travis Partington's Military Show, Oscar Mike Radio. Tomorrow night, Drafting the Circuits and Turnbuckles and Spilt Liquor Podcast. I'll be DJing the Easter Community Celebration this Saturday because the Easter Bunny's coming to town. That's at the DW Field Park. Pet CPR class takes place at the APCSM. That's on April 25th, so you want to make sure to head down there. Star Wars Trivia Night at Lianes on May 4th. You guys know I'm a big Star Wars fan. I'll be there for Trivia Night on May 4th. And then Method Man, Redman, and the Locks, May 30th. Ride the Bat Bus is free till June 30th. And then Jeremiah, hey, this kid needs to get to Austria. We're scanning that QR code. He's playing in the Austria World Games. He's a young basketball player here from the city of Brockton, June 16th to 25th. And then Family Fun Day with the music, Thursdays, 3:30 to 4:30 at the Brockton Public Library. Save the date for the Boston Brothers. Save the date for August 1st, Shriners Boston ride. That's my slingshot ride that I put on. And then Newbury Street will be closed, and there it is. Brockton Arts Paint Nights. Jeremy was talking about the last Saturday of every month, 7 to 9. Enzo Flats, $20 per person. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank everybody for coming on the show. I want to thank Jeremy for coming on the show. I want to thank Greg for coming on the show. Good stuff, everybody. Tune in. Get ready for this Final Four. This is going to be a crazy weekend. But hey, SpongeBob, do me a favor. Take us home.
See you next Tuesday.
Thank you for listening to The Booth on Hoobazoo and HatcherRadio.com. Please follow the Facebook page and subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. The Booth is a Sinister One production hosted by Sinister One.
I've got to start hanging out with friends that are a little more intelligent and understand politics and stuff. It's just that I'm up on this level up here, and all my friends are down here. Me, nah. You guys, nah. Maybe a little more down in here. Screw you guys, I'm going home.
I smoke, I drink, I do my thing. These bitches hating, so you know I got to make it plain. Don't do cocaine with your chick, my main. We stick together, true forever, yeah, you know we bang. I miss those days, which was easy. If only I make it, keep this shit on repeat. Now that I done upgraded, I've been upstate, but y'all think I'm playing. And I got a hit now for these weak assholes who think I ain't slaying. Try me, and I'll probably end up laughing, cause I never back down. I'm that chick with a clean ass whip, I don't need that shit, I got my own now. I get hurt, I get tired of fussing, fighting, guess I gotta crack down. Don't mess with me, cause on everything, I'ma have to bring the whole city out.
WHOOBAZOO, that's Hoobazoo.com.
Enter website, enter website, enter website, enter website.